Wow, I've never gotten as many comments and emails as I did on that last video about atheism. Some were positive, some were negative, some were just a little bit vague. Like one which simply stated, sadly delusional. I'm not entirely sure what they were referring to and they didn't elaborate, but I guess that's YouTube, right? The good, the bad, the ugly, and sometimes the huh? But sometimes omnism doesn't tickle. In fact, a lot of times it doesn't tickle. Sometimes it can be downright disturbing, and in some of my later videos, you're going to find out just how disturbing it really can be. But for the moment, I'm just going to talk about a few of the comments I made on that video, which people didn't seem to fully understand, or perhaps didn't understand exactly what I was saying. One of them was that a lot glommed onto this statement I made about how atheism as a term was somewhat of an absurd way to describe a belief system. And of course that's kind of true, but you do have to understand how the word came about and that there is precedence for that kind of thing. For instance, deism and theism used to be two terms that meant the exact same thing. One was just Greek and the other one was Latin, and they just meant you believe in God. That's it. But over the years, you had this group of people that started believing that God had sort of created the universe and then just left. It was a way of explaining why bad things happen and why God doesn't answer prayers or doesn't seem to answer prayers, etc., etc. And so you got these two terms, deism and theism, which now both meant that you believed in God, but that you believed in him sort of in two different ways. And this is very much what happened with theism. As one of my viewers correctly commented, it did used to be a Greek term that just meant you believed outside of the mainstream, or rather that you didn't believe in the mainstream gods. And the Romans later used that term to refer to Christians because they didn't believe in the Roman gods, and then later the Christians turned around and called people atheists who didn't believe in their God. And what really happened was, as I said in my last video, those people eventually started kind of taking pride in the term atheism. And so now it's kind of a bucket term for people who are really secular humanists, or those who call themselves rationalists, or modern skeptics, or those who philosophically consider themselves nihilistic or existentialistic. And so we just have to realize that to some extent that's just language. It's just how it works. It evolves. And sometimes terms that yes meant one thing, they're are a lot more complicated now. And that sort of brings me to my second comment, which some people talked about, which was how I referred to atheists as essentially believing in God. That they do believe in God, but just in a different way. And that is kind of a difficult concept to get across in a video or even in person. But simply put, this was really a way that I got over a philosophical road bump many years ago. And today I would probably describe it somewhat simpler. Imagine all of reality, just all of reality, all of the dimensions, all of the universe, everything that exists. And here on this little planet Earth, we have humans. And these humans try to understand everything around them. Everything, the entire universe. And so they do it in one of three particular ways that I talk about a lot. You have the philosopher who tries to figure out why life exists. You have the religious person who tries to figure out how we should be living life. And then you have the scientist that tries to figure out how everything works, how it physically works, how it was physically made, what it is made of. And so when you look at it that way, you realize that all three of those ways of looking at the world are just that. They're just ways of seeing the world. Where the religious person sort of anthropomorphizes the universe and looks at it in this very personal way. And the philosopher looks at it from his perspective, or he's just trying to figure out why all of this is. And the scientist is only interested in it from the point of view of empirical evidence. And of course, not all scientists are atheists, but often science and atheism get grouped together. And they are only interested in seeing the universe in this very rationalistic way. So from that perspective, we all believe in the same thing. We all believe in reality, and we're all trying to explore reality just from different angles. And that's why I make that statement. But I I saw it, an article just yesterday. It came up in my Facebook feed, and very synchronistic time to hit me, about how the Dawkins style of atheism is really kind of going out of style. And this is something that I personally think is really good. Those of you who are familiar with Dawkins know that it's a very militant form of atheism. It's very hateful towards religion and actually calls it evil, and you wind up with this big fight between Christians and that style of atheism. And to me, this is really a very good thing, that atheists, or more of the younger atheists who are taking the place of the older atheists, are coming to see that religion does have some value even to them. And they aren't seeing it as a purely evil and horrible thing. They're coming to grips with it. And personally, I think that everything will eventually level out. I think that religion and philosophy and science will start being able to learn from each other more instead of being militant towards each other. Because to me, it's really just a matter of growing pains. I mean, the world used to be less rational. We had a less rational form of religion. And as we moved into the rational age, where of course science became much more prevalent, there was a lot of friction between these groups, and this caused a lot of hatred. But I think that as that all levels out, we're really going to wind up coming around to the same place. I don't think that religion is ever going to go away. It's not ever going to go away. It's a perfectly valid way of looking at the universe, and a very useful way of looking at the universe. It's just that when we take classical religion and all the things that we've learned from classical religion, and we add that to everything that we understand now more rationally, and I am desperately hoping that that can eventually get added into philosophy, which really has kind of gone by the wayside these days. You know, it's all religion and science, and that's really sad to me, because I really kind of consider myself more of a philosopher than anything else. But I think that's going to come back into it. So here's to that. And guys, please don't forget to support us as much as possible by clicking subscribe, liking us on Facebook and Twitter, and please send me those questions right at this address. Thank you very much. Again, I'm